Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I will call the bonding subcommittee meeting back to order. I want to take a moment and thank our staff at Finance, Revenue, and Bonding, Bree and Ash, for making sure we had a little break. We thank you for that. Well appreciated. Next up, we have the state treasurer, Eric Russell, and his staff. Treasurer, you may begin. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here. So good afternoon, Senator Moore, Representative Napoli, Senator Wong, Representative Piscopo, and distinguished members of the General Bonding Subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today on bond programs administered by the Office of the Treasurer. I'd like to start by just briefly introducing some of the team that I have here with me today. Deputy Treasurer Sarah Sanders, Chief Investment Officer Ted Wright, and the Assistant Treasurer for Debt Management, Bettina Brown-Eyes. I'm aware that it is unusual for a treasurer to testify before this subcommittee. And while my team and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have about bonding or other initiatives within the agency, I'm excited to update you on the status of Connecticut baby bonds. Many of you worked to pass the program into law in 2021, and it was an incredible achievement and an act of fiscal selflessness. It's easy to say that children deserve to inherit a more equitable future, but you did the work of committing to build that future on their behalf. It's not lost on me that you and your colleagues in the legislature must constantly balance competing priorities. So I'm grateful that you made Connecticut baby bonds one of those priorities. The program will invest $3,200 on behalf of each baby whose birth is covered by Husky. Those funds will be held in a trust managed and administered by my office, and those investments will grow along with each child. We estimate between $11,000 and $24,000 will be available to each participant between the ages of 18 and 30. And those funds can be used to help build wealth, including paying for education or training, starting or investing in a Connecticut business, buying a home here in Connecticut, or saving for retirement. When the General Assembly passed Connecticut baby bonds, it included general obligation bond funding of $50 million a year for the next 12 years, totaling $600 million. This funding authorization was delayed along with the effective date of the program itself during the 2022 legislative session. The first year funding authorization is now available for State Bond Commission approval on or after July 1st, 2024. And babies born starting this July 1st will be eligible for the baby bond program. The governor's administration has been clear that it does not intend to authorize that bonding as originally passed, and it is important that the bond authorization remain in place. However, given the governor's position, I am recommending alternate sources of funding be identified and secured during the legislative session to prevent the first class of eligible babies from being left out of the program. I've had many productive conversations with the administration and legislators about the most appropriate and efficient way to fund the program. I appreciate the opportunity for collaboration, and I'm optimistic that we can reach a solution that aligns our budgetary priorities with our commitment to make long-term investments directly in the people of our state. Everything my office needs to begin the program this July is in place. The process to receive the number of births paid for by Husky and determine each participant's share of investments is already law. The trust documents, which would create a charitable trust within my office and serve as the investment vehicle for the funds, are prepared and ready to be signed. My staff and I have been working with stakeholders across the executive branch to ensure there is a process to verify eligibility when beneficiaries begin to make their claims 18 years from now. And these conversations have been encouraging and are ongoing. I've also engaged with community stakeholders, early child care advocates, and action agencies that serve families on Medicaid, among others, who are eagerly awaiting the program to begin. Connecticut Baby Bonds represents a unique opportunity to connect new parents with existing services, using the promise of future resources to support multiple generations within a family. The program can strengthen the outreach of on-the-ground providers and boost the effectiveness of ongoing social service, workforce development, and financial literacy efforts. Those are ancillary benefits that complement the overarching goal of combating systemic poverty and promising the opportunity of success to every child in Connecticut. Meanwhile, as we prepare for the program to begin in July, the nation is watching. My office has fielded many stakeholders, including our counterparts in states seeking to implement their own baby bonds program. While Connecticut was the first state in the country to create such a law, we are in jeopardy of forfeiting our place as a leader and a national model if we don't follow through on our commitment to begin investing in these children. Connecticut has one of the largest wealth gaps in the country, a byproduct of longstanding inequality. We're left with an unlevel playing field that denies opportunities to kids based largely on the financial circumstance of their parents. We have a moral obligation and an economic incentive to close that gap. An estimated 15,000 children each year will be eligible for Connecticut baby bonds. Nearly half of all births in the state, including kids in all of Connecticut's 169 cities and towns. This program offers them the resources required to fully participate in our state's economy in ways that will directly benefit the communities where they already live, including many areas that have historically lacked investment. We have a chance to empower a generation of potential entrepreneurs, shape a generation of skilled and educated workers, and break the malignant cycle of generational poverty that will otherwise continue to act as a barrier between Connecticut children and their full potential. But perhaps most importantly, we have a renewed chance to demonstrate our commitment to a more equal, prosperous future for our state and encourage people to build their own future for them and their children here in Connecticut. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for your informative testimony. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
The first question I have is, are there any changes to the baby bonds program that you believe need to happen?
So one of the changes that we're looking at, and as I mentioned, was other forms of funding the program. So we've had very productive conversations with the administration and with members of the legislature around the most efficient way and effective way to do that. And so those are ongoing conversations around whether or not there should be revenue streams out of our general fund dedicated to some funding of the program in combination with some bonding. We've also looked at other ways of bonding the program rather than just general obligations. So we're certainly looking into a combination of those opportunities. And so I think that's likely where the change would be legislatively. I think there's also some opportunities by doing more funding up front where we can kind of save dollar wise in the overall administration of the program. In terms of the actual services built into the program, I think there are some other great opportunities to build in wraparound services, even with existing programs, but knowing that we're identifying children and families that are really in need of additional support and services. So really trying to use the structure of the baby bonds program as a vehicle to help administer some of those additional supports.
Thank you for your response.
Thank you.
Our co-chair, Senator Moore, has a few questions. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Mr. Treasurer.
Good afternoon.
So I've heard a lot about what doesn't work and what the governor won't do, but I think we need to have some solid ground on what we will do. The legislature passed that, the governor signed it, he knows he signed it, you know he signed it, and we expect him and you to hold true to what we said we were going to do. I shared that I went to a fiscal responsibility seminar in New Orleans, and it was the topic of conversation that Connecticut was one of the first in the nation to do something like this. So for us not to do it is not only bad for our reputation, but also as a legislator, I don't appreciate that something was signed off and agreed to and it's not getting done. So, one of the pushbacks we heard in the early days was that we didn't know who these children are. We don't know how to capture the information. I didn't believe that. But now I really want to know what the plan is. I think we deserve to know that there's a solid plan to move this forward and not just in a place of talking about different ways to be able to do this. But I also know that there are administration cost to DSS. That's come up also. And I want to know, how would you address that issue of the cost to DSS?
Thank you for the question, Senator. So first, I would say, as we are working closely with the administration and with agencies on, I think the best way to optimize implementation of the program, as far as how we build in these additional supports, about how we make the program most effective. I want to be clear that the program right now is ready to be implemented. We have a method of identifying children born on Husky, and for the Treasurer's Office to be notified of that, so that we can invest those dollars in a trust, and that those funds can grow over the life of that child. So that is, we are in a place to do that right now. And I wanted, the second part of your question, I just blanked on, I'm sorry.
What is the actual plan? Let me just say this, anything that you do, the legislators have to approve. So as you're talking to outside people and action agencies and the administration, is the legislators who are elected to pull this off and to be able to get it done. And I don't know that there's not been a larger conversation with the legislators to understand what is the next step in this and what is your alternate plan if you're not doing the bonding. Although we stand on, I'm speaking for me as a legislator, I stand on that. I pushed this out of the bond pack, put it in the bond package that it voted on, and got the legislature to vote on it. And we saw that as the way to get it done.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to stand on that no matter what, because I believe that's what we did, and we should be honored and respected for the work we did. But if you have another plan that's bigger, I think the legislature, who has to move it through, if you come up with something, should be notified and engaged in the conversation about what that is. And I haven't heard that.
Absolutely. So we are having those conversations, and we plan to present some options for funding the program in other ways if the legislature